Welcome back, this is Tyler bringing you an infinite flight air traffic control tutorial. Today I'll be talking about the visual approach, which is an instrument approach that allows an aircraft to proceed visually to the field as long as they have the airport in sight. In this first scenario, I'll show you the visual approach using an instrument approach plate. So Skyhawk Heavy here in his 737 is going to be flying the 4 stacks visual approach to runway 15 at Bob Hope. First thing I'll do is let him know to expect vectors for the visual approach to runway 15. Now the approach plate tells us that the approach begins at Fillmore VOR, which is here on the left side of your screen. So I'm going to go and vector him towards the VOR, planning on setting him up for that approach. Now let's hop over to the approach plate here and we'll take a look at it. Again, it does start at Fillmore VOR and the recommended altitude is 5,000 feet, flying a heading 080 once they leave Fillmore. So that's the plan right now. We're going to go and set them up for Fillmore, then 080 at 5,000 feet, and from there we can clear them for the approach. Our goal by following the instrument approach plate is for Skyhawk Heavy to be able to get the airport in sight so that we can clear him for the approach and then switch him to tower. So if we skip ahead here, I'm giving him a heading to the Fillmore VOR, I'm descending him down to 6,000 feet, and then we're preparing for that 5,000 foot altitude with the 080 heading.
Descend and maintain 6,000. Turn left heading 160, descend and maintain 6,000, Skyhawk Heavy.
Okay, so now it's time for 5,000 feet and a heading of 080. So I'm going to click Assign Altitude, 5,000 feet. And then that next step, if we think back to our visual approach definition, is that we want Skyhawk Heavy to report the airport in sight. So I've checked my approach plate here, everything's correct. And then I'm going to open up my menu here for Skyhawk Heavy, and I'm going to ask him to report the airport in sight. So we open it up, scroll down, and then number 11 is going to be Report Airport in Sight.
Wilco, Skyhawk Heavy.
As he gets closer to the airport, he's going to report the airport in sight. At this time, we'll go and open up his flight progress strip. Number 6 will be clear for the approach, and we'll clear him for the visual approach, runway 15 at Bob Hope. Skyhawk Heavy is now going to follow the instrument approach plate and proceed inbound visually using his landmarks that he sees both on the plate and on the ground. After he's been switched to the Unicom, he can simply call inbound, or with Tower, Tower only needs to sequence and clear or simply issue a clearance if they're number 1. There's no need to give any pattern entries because they'll be proceeding inbound visually, whether from the downwind, base, final, or an actual published procedure much like this one. Now the second scenario I want to talk about is one where we're not using an approach plate, simply setting them up to get the airport in sight. So Skyhawk Heavy is requesting a visual approach for runway, well really any runway, but we're going to go and set them up for runway 24 right at Los Angeles. Just like before, we tell them to expect vectors, and then I'll climb them to 5,000 feet and set them up for a right base for runway 24 right at Los Angeles. Now it's extremely important if you're working in an airport and you're doing approach that services multiple airports or simply one main airport, I would encourage you all to look at the visual approaches available for that airport so that people have the opportunity, if they would like to do those visual approaches. But in the case that you don't know, it's going to be much like radar vectors where you simply point them to the airport or set them up on a downwind base final, and all you want them to do is call the airport in sight, then clear them for the visual approach, and that allows them to proceed inbound visually. So once again, he's reported it in sight. I tap the aircraft, clear him. I'm going to select 2,000 feet, and now he's cleared for the approach. LAX Tower would simply just need to sequence and clear him, or issue them the clearance. So I want to thank you all for joining me with this visual approach tutorial. Be sure you like and subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on social media. My name's Tyler, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.